But
Are you a
yeah,
soccer player?
yeah, that was before the fishnets. Yeah. In
Yeah.
fact, I think that's how far the pendulum swung the other way as I went from Adidas to the fishnets.
Nice. You're
Um,
like, I am never going to be a
I'm
soccer
like,
player guy ever again.
I am going to course correct so
Yeah.
hard that that
I'm
guy's
gonna
not going to
course
know.
correct. Holy
He's not
crap,
going to
dude.
know what hit him.
DC, what's up, my brother?
What's happening, man?
You know how it is. Another day,
Yeah.
another dollar in paradise, and all that other cliche crap, right?
Yep. Yep. And we've talked about that for sure.
That's right, for
How
sure.
much I love cliches.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know if there's any news to talk about right now.
Uh,
Usually we kind of start off a show with a little bit of something that's going on, but
New Deftones.
oh, that's true. New Deftones. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
I, I don't know. I'm just happy that they're putting out stuff. Is it as good as their old stuff? Nah, but it's still Deftones. It doesn't.
Yeah.
I would say it like this. Like I don't remember the name of the record, but like when Linkin Park put out that record, um, shit, what year was that? 2018 or something like that. Before Chester died or whatever, and everyone was like, "What is this 311?" Like that's what I'm just expecting one of these bands to do. But it's still Deftones. I
Yeah.
dig it.
Yeah.
It's all right. It's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, I think I saw an interview with Stefan and he was talking about, concentrating more on creating soundscapes and things like that.
Hmm.
And these are very good examples of what he's talking about.
Yep.
And I'm like, no, write riffs, man. Bring the
Yeah.
riff back. Okay. We're
That's
going
right.
in the wrong direction here. Not that the songs weren't good because they were pretty good.
Yeah.
I enjoyed them.
Yep.
Am I going to listen to them over some of the older stuff? No.
Now, well, that's just the thing, and this is what
Yeah.
we talk about quite a bit. Is just I think when you're in your teens and 20s and you're writing music, you're really exploring.
Yeah.
You're not like a master of anything, but I really feel like just in due time, just like when you get older, it's like your wisdom almost kind of supersedes your creativity sometimes. You know what I mean? And so you
Yeah.
almost get too muddled with too much information that you have in your brain
Yeah.
rather than just playing and exploring, you know?
Yeah. 100%. And I've noticed, that in my writing and, what I've written recently and what I'm working on now versus what I wrote 30 years ago.
Yeah,
Completely different. I know more now, but like you said, it's also easier to get lost in the minutia,
right.
as it were. It's like, okay, is this part heavy enough? Is this part need another? Do we go off time here? Or, and you try to do things like that you've learned in little tricks and stuff. And it's
Right.
like, just let it be what it is.
Exactly. And it's like
Don't
with
mess with it.
vocalists, and I'm not even going to talk about metal vocalists here, but like just like if you watch like some of those dumb shows like The Voice or whatever, you have some of these people and they just go on
Yeah.
these like trill rants, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
cool, you have a lot of control over your voice, but you're making it horrible right now because you're putting way too much into
Yeah.
it. And again,
Yeah.
I've said this before, but I think that's one of the things that Kurt Cobain was like the best at was just simplicity and, you know, taking just the most simplest of notes and choruses and, just putting together this small little formula that just freaking worked every time. And don't get me wrong, I mean, there's amazing songs out there by amazing musicians who go way over the top, like Dream Theater and stuff like that,
Yeah.
who, I'm not necessarily waving a Dream Theater flag or banner in the back of my, bedroom or anything like that, but they're good, I mean, it's good stuff, but
I
yeah,
mean,
just too much is too much sometimes.
right. And there's something to be said for simplicity. And I think that's a, one of the main reasons why this particular genre did so well and
Correct.
continues to do well is
Amen.
its simplicity and its accessibility to the listener. And when AI can write your album for you, that
Hmm.
just, I mean, it just proves that there's no real soul there to begin with. And if you listen to a lot of this, I mean, go to YouTube and search AI generated metal, and you'll get 24 hours in loops
Right.
of it.
Yeah.
And I mean, and it all sounds like one band that I'm not going to mention because I'll take some hate for it. But it, when your guitars and your drums are in sync the entire time, a computer
Yeah.
can write it.
Yeah. No.
And I mean, everybody's worried about computers and AI replacing them in the workplace anyway. Yikes.
Right. Wasn't there a period of time too, not too long ago, just like 2, 3, 4 weeks ago or something like that, that it was like AI generated band slash song was the number one downloaded or streamed song on Spotify. And it was like the
Oh,
first
really?
time that had ever happened. Yeah. And
I
it
didn't
was
know
some
that.
like Nickelback sounding quote
Sure.
unquote band.
Sure.
And I don't think it was good. But the thing is, what I would say is you could kind of sort of tell it was done by a computer. Now, also maybe that's why it was the number one streamed is because people were just like really
Curious.
enthralled to find out what this was.
Right.
But it
I'm
wasn't
about
as
to ask
good
you what
as
this song is called so I can go listen to it.
I yeah, I have to look it up. I'll have to look it
I
up
can
because it was like
Google
one of
it.
those things
I'm going to write it
you
down.
hear. I didn't even listen to the whole thing. I think I listened like a minute and a half. I'm like, this is kind of just cliche bull crap, you know? And it was
Yeah.
because the thing is like, this is the one thing I don't think that AI will ever replace is just like soul and stuff,
Right.
anything
Right.
creative. And so, and this is my world because, that's my job. I'm in technology and stuff. And so I
Right.
deal with AI every single day.
Yeah.
And so you talk to a lot of the AI leaders, and what they're saying is in probably 10 years, 10 plus years, everything is going to be completely changed on how we operate. AI is going to
Mhm.
replace so many different jobs, starting off with things like accounting,
Sure.
coding within healthcare, coding within programming, things of that nature. Anything
Yeah.
that's monotonous type of work, it's going to take care
Uh-huh.
of. And then eventually it's going to turn into robotics. And that could be anything from doing, I mean, we are already using robots for building cars and things of that nature, and it's just going to get
Yep.
even more. But so in 10 years, what they're saying is that we're supposed to basically how do I put it? Go into some sort of like utopia. And so us humans, which I don't necessarily agree with, but we're gonna
Where is this
basically,
going?
I'm telling you, dude, it's a trip. But this is my world. I'm just joking. But
No, I'm
anyways,
here for it,
so like
man.
this utopia is basically gonna be like everybody's gonna be on like a certain sort of universal income. And then with that, then like there's going to be like business owners who are going to basically be like the upper echelon, but they're going to pay a tremendous amount of taxes. So the rest of everybody can essentially just live. And then AI and everything, robotics essentially is going to basically serve us, is what they're saying. And then with that, then the only things that are going to be left is ultimately it's gonna be spiritual life, so like religious people like priests or pastors or anything like that. And then it's gonna be anything creative, leadership, so like they'll need like CEOs
Right.
and CFOs and
Yeah.
things of that nature. And then I forget what the fourth one was. I think it was like therapy.
Okay.
But
Like
like
mental health.
like
Yeah.
mental health. But they're saying like even like healthcare, doctors and stuff won't be needed in 10 years. So they'll have
Spooky.
all healthcare, all everything is going to be prompt driven. So ultimately, what it'll be is you'll still need experts in those fields, but they'll need to be an expert on how to prompt the AI. And so your doctors or providers or whatever will basically be experts in AI and understanding healthcare in order to give you proper diagnosis by basically scanning and so it's not like, oh, I went to school for 10 years or 8 years or whatever, and and I have all this experience. I got 15, 20 years of experience now, and da 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 da. And like this really good doctor. Like, none of that's going to matter anymore, essentially, from what they're saying. So ultimately, coming full circle, what I'm getting at though is they're saying that the creative side is actually going to be the biggest side of humanity then. So we're basically going back to ultimately almost like an Adam and Eve stage where we just live, we don't have jobs, everything's provided for us, and we're basically just playing harps and
Okay.
just creating music and creating art and creating paintings and all this other stuff because that's the only thing that's left. And they're saying that there's, even though obviously we see AI, you can put in a prompt and say create a child flying a blue dragon and it'll do it, you know. But there's a lack of soul in all that stuff, you know,
Right.
and that's
Yeah.
something that will never be replaced. And you can tell
Huh.
with music now. I mean, it can, yeah, sure, it can create music, but is it good? Because it's not good
Yeah, I
because
don't
it
think so.
lacks soul. It doesn't know what it's doing. It doesn't know why it's writing. It's doing what you're telling it to do.
Right.
So,
Huh. Okay, so two things. um, that sounds a lot like socialism, not to go down
yep.
that road, but second thing is I have been working on my AI skills, my chat
Nice.
GPT skills.
Nice.
Um, and I think I've hit a peak.
Okay.
I I got it to make me a photo of my dog taking a piss in a urinal.
You've peaked. You've
And
officially, you are
that's my
Elon
peak
Musk.
with
Yeah.
that is my peak with AI right there. It's
That's
hilarious. I'll put
awesome.
it up on the screen. It's
Heck yeah.
for the YouTube folks. It's
Heck yeah.
I thought it was funny. It's on
Nice.
my
Good
fridge
job.
right now. Yeah, I printed it and put it on my fridge. Um,
That's awesome.
yeah. So, um, but yeah. So today I wanted to kind of in the spirit of reminiscing a little as we kind of been talking about, talk about some of our experiences, kind of growing up in, I guess we can call it Slipknot's shadow. For those who don't know where Omaha, Nebraska is, and that's probably the majority of you listening, we are about 2.5 hours west of Des Moines, Iowa. So there was a lot of kind of crossover, a lot of relationships between the Omaha scene and the Des Moines scene. And so I just wanted to kind of chat through some of those things today.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's a very interesting subject. And just to kind of also add on a little bit with just understanding, the scenes did blend, quite a bit. It was, when you're growing up in it and you're playing in the Midwest, Omaha and Des Moines, we were pretty much like, I would say almost like brother and sister. It's like
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
one of the same family, where it's like everybody in Des Moines and everybody in Omaha, it's like we all understood the Midwest and everything and we're of
Mhm.
it. But it's like you're going from one larger city in the Midwest to another larger city in the Midwest.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's easy to incorporate, but
Right.
it's far enough away that you're not doing it every weekend, you know.
Right.
So it was always a bit of a venture, but like what you're kind of getting at though, there was definitely a shadow, and it
Yeah.
was just I think everybody from the Midwest was feeling it,
Yeah.
not just
And
Omaha, but
and I didn't want to, and I'm not bringing it up because I want to name drop or
right.
do anything like that. That's not the intent. Um, kind of where I want to go with it is kind of how, after Slipknot, after that first record kind of broke, everybody was kind of being molded in that vision, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I read a book recently um, called Hitmakers: The Science of Popularity in the Age of Distraction by Derek Thompson. You ever heard of it?
No.
It's a great read. Or if YouTube is preferred, look it up on YouTube. He does a lot of speaking engagements about what he wrote. He basically kind of explained how to write a hit.
Oh, neat.
It was pretty wild. So, um, and it revolves around what he calls familiar surprises. So, and I'm going to way oversimplify this. Everybody, if you feel like it, definitely read the book. But the central premise is that, say you have a hit song and you assign, and I'm pulling this from memory, 30, 40, 50 attributes to that, or we'll say band. So we'll say, for the sake of this conversation, Slipknot. You assign 30, 40, 50 attributes to them, and then you tweak a couple of them and then keep the rest the same. And
Okay.
what that does is that creates familiarity and a little bit of confirmation bias,
Right.
but it's different enough to still be new.
Gotcha.
And after I read this book, I started thinking about it. I'm like, oh my god, that's exactly what we were all doing in the late '90s and up through the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
You know, and there's, I mean, I could probably rifle off a number of you know similarities, and we didn't have it kind of wrapped up in a neat little box like that. but we kind of were doing it subconsciously, right?
Right.
We didn't know we were doing it, but we were doing it. So, for example, and I'm going to share something that I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to. In the early days of my playing, in downshift, we kind of went more the kind of the goth version of new metal, right? And I'll put the photo up on the screen. But I actually have it right here, so I'll show it to you. But I'll put up a better
Nice.
copy of it. So, in the spirit of kind of the goth thing, we started doing fishnets and all that kind of stuff. So some people got to suffer through this.
Nice. I don't
Yeah.
think I've ever seen
So
that photo, dude.
yeah, it's
That's
been locked
awesome.
away for 30 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'll put a clear version up for the YouTube folks, but but it was still the tuned down guitars, the
Sure.
DJ, all of those kinds of things. We made the conscious decision, okay, well, we're not going to wear masks. It's like, well, what about face paint? No,
Yep.
and all of those kinds of things. And do we have a percussionist? No, but we're going to kind of simulate it,
Right.
whether it was you or, our bass player, jumping behind a drum kit and beating on some drums.
Right.
So that was kind of how we started to tweak those things, right? So the parallels to this book were just kind of wild, but we were doing it in that Slipknot kind of vein.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting because it actually puts like a science behind what was actually happening. When you're in
Yeah.
your teens and 20s, you don't understand that it's,
Mm-hmm.
because like it's like when you're back then it was like I almost again when I was in downshift I wasn't I wasn't in the goth stage, but
No, no, we had moved on.
obviously
Yeah.
right, but we I just remember it was like you don't consciously say, hey, we need to copy this band or anything like that. It's just like
Right.
you almost see them as influences. I think every musical artist has influences and stuff,
Sure.
which is totally fine, but again, I think that you know it almost creates a fad when everybody jumps into the same boat so quickly, and I
Yeah.
think, but again, that's what we see as a fad or riding coattails or something like that. But what you're saying is
Yeah.
there's an actual science behind it.
Yeah. And
Interesting.
I think the record labels knew that science already, and
Yeah.
that's what they would do. And then you kind of get that hierarchy of bands, in each genre, subgenre, whatever.
Sure.
But and we were lucky. And I want to also preface what I'm about to say with I appreciate everything these folks did for us. Back in the day, I mean, and even to this day, we had a lot of help. We had a great team of people behind us in radio support, management support, and some of them were involved with Slipknot as well. So that's kind of where that connection was, and we were kind of pointed in that direction, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Nothing wrong with it, but we
No.
were kind of gently pushed in that direction. There was a certain, I think, expectation in terms of a performance when it came to that stuff. Slipknot back in those days, it was incredibly violent. Um, they're all paying for that now,
Yeah.
but it was
Yep.
incredibly violent, and really took a toll on their bodies. And I think for at least a hot minute, we were trying to do that as well. Not necessarily, after you joined the band, but prior
Oh,
to
I
that. And
walked, dude. I went to the hospital,
well,
had
that is true,
surgery from
and
a show.
that is true. Okay, I take back what I said.
Yep.
And I'll let you tell that story.
Yep.
But I do remember kind of when, at least in the beginning, early days, when that all came to a head and we realized we got to cool it.
Yeah.
Um, we used to use these big construction lights, these big box construction lights. They were made out of metal, and the top was a piece of reinforced glass. It wasn't plexiglass, but like reinforced. And it was this big metal cone. It just incredibly bright. It would light up and it like an
Right.
interstate,
Yeah.
and we had, gosh, 3 or 4 of them across the front of the stage, and we would stand up on them and, and blah, blah, blah. And I remember we were playing here in Omaha one night, and it was kind of at the height of all of this. Right. And, it's like, we were just going to go crazy. We were all pissed off at each other anyways. And that was something else that was encouraged, save that stuff for your
Yep.
performance.
Yep.
And I remember it was a headlining show, and we got to the end, and I don't know who did it, who started it, but all of a sudden I saw a bar stool come from behind me into one of them, and it shattered. It shattered the glass.
Shit, I didn't know
And
that.
I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm into this. So I grab it and I start, breaking other ones, and then, continue down the line. Stage was completely covered in broken glass. And I remember the sound guy. I mean, people were terrified, right? People
Mm,
were legit scared. And, when we realized what we kind of did, we're like, oh no. And the sound guy, came up to us. He's like, if you guys ever want to play here again, you will not leave a piece of glass on this stage. Clean it up.
yeah.
And I said, yep,
Yes, sir.
gonna do it. So, I mean, we spent the next hour and a half cleaning all these little
Yeah.
shards of broken glass off stage. And I was like, okay, well, we need new lights.
Right.
So that was smart. But we realized it kind of got out of hand at that point. So it's like, okay, I
Yeah.
mean, we could have really hurt somebody.
Oh, totally. Yeah,
I mean, because
especially
it was,
that close to the crowd and
uh-huh,
everything too.
uh-huh.
That's pretty crazy. What venue
Yeah,
was that?
that was the Ranch Bowling
Ranch
Arena.
Bowl. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because I remember, when I joined, we actually created the light. We did basically 2.0 of lights, box
Yeah,
lights and
we,
stuff, and I think they're a lot more safe,
no
and they had some
glass,
technology. Yeah, no
no
glass,
glass.
and so
That was
had
intentional too.
yeah, yep. And I get that's funny. I never knew that story.
Yeah, yeah,
I think it was just, hey, we need new box lights. Okay,
yeah.
and
That
so we
was
made
why.
some new ones.
That was why. And I think we tried to use them again,
Yeah,
and we had to stand on the corners,
yeah,
which was also kind of,
yeah. Not
it
safe.
didn't work. Yeah, it didn't
Yeah.
work. So,
Yeah. Well, I
but
remember that like the
yeah,
first time I saw Downshift and as a concert goer, I think I don't even remember, did we play with you or was it I was at the Ranch Bowl just hanging out, I think. I think that's what it was. Yeah. I think we were just hanging out, I think. And then like there was a band named Illicit that was
mm-hmm.
playing
Yeah, sure.
and cool dudes by the way. And
Yeah,
and then yeah, you guys came up and I think you guys headlined. And I just remember, I was like, oh man, who are these guys? And then like you guys had those freaking wicked cool box lights. And I was like, and you're right, they were bright as hell. And I was like,
yeah,
oh man,
yeah,
that's cool. Because like with enough smoke in the room and everything, it was a
yeah,
trip.
yeah.
It was cool.
Yeah, I back in those days, like it was all DIY, and is in terms of your stage show. I mean,
Totally,
venues
yeah.
would have lights, but
PVC, everything. Yeah.
yeah, but the
Yeah.
more you could control on your own, the better.
Right.
And we had a strobe rig as well.
Yep.
Um, I spent what was left over of my student loan money on those that year. I remember
Nice.
that. That's how young I was.
Yeah.
But I think we had, I don't know, 6 or 8 of these massive strobe lights.
Yeah.
Um, and so we were using those, the fog, and these
Yeah.
boxes, and it was a pretty slick little setup that we had, um, but yeah,
Well, that
we
was the
kind of,
thing though. Like I remember again, like my era with the band, like that was something that was really important to, the two of us at least, was that we wanted to be more than just playing music on stage. We wanted it to be like a visual representation of
right,
what we were trying to portray as well.
yeah,
And we took all of that very serious. It was,
yeah,
you know, not that other bands didn't, and not to disparage anybody else, but just for us anyways, it was just like, it wasn't just about playing live and trying to get fans. It was, we really
mm,
wanted to bring an experience. And I think
right,
that we were interviewed quite a bit and we said that a lot back then. And so we were
yeah,
always trying to advance that visual aspect of the aesthetic on stage. And
mm,
obviously I mean, we were really well known for the lights and stuff, all the different lights that we had and
yeah,
the different things that
the,
we did. And I thought that's one thing that really set us apart, compared to other bands, was like, because they'd always use just house lights, and they'd have just like different
yeah,
colors flickering and stuff like that. And then here we'd come up and we actually had lights that went along with our music, because we controlled them and we had fog and all this other stuff, and we had our own
yeah,
box lights and they were
yep,
controlled by us stepping on them, and that was really cool. We put a lot into it, and
yeah,
but either way, I'm going on a trip. But like what you're saying though, I mean, it was, you got to think about the grunge experience, prior to, new metal was that was kind of the antithesis of getting away from stage performance,
Right.
just put
Yeah.
flannel holes in your jeans. I haven't showered in a week and I'm playing music. Blah, that's pretty
Right.
much what
Yeah.
grunge was. And the new metal was kind of like bringing back that aesthetic and stage performance. And I thought that that
Yeah.
was well needed because I think, and don't
Yeah.
get me wrong, I love grunge, and there's a lot of my favorite bands are grunge bands, but and I think it was needed at that time because you're coming from the big hair metal band era, which was all theatrics and no
Right.
substance.
Yeah.
And then you go into the grunge, which was the other way around, where it's like just a really good, simple song with some flannel and greasy hair and t-shirts and stuff. And then you go
Yeah.
into new metal, which kind of was a combination of all of it, where it had the I don't give a crap attitude that grunge had, but it also had really sweet, stage performance.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I think it was, Slipknot set the bar very high, just in general.
yeah,
So we were all kind of trying to hit that. And, because what ended up started happening is they were coming back for those bands,
yeah,
Sean and Corey, and, more recently Sid,
yeah,
coming back for those local and regional bands and helping them out, and getting them in front of management companies and labels and all of that. I mean, Sean's credited with a number,
yes,
of those, most
absolutely.
famously Mudvayne.
Yeah,
And they're from Peoria, Illinois.
yeah,
And I think that that's also too why it's important to kind of build your network, you know. And kind of what I mean by that is, you kind of link up with bands in other markets and you trade shows and all of that, and you kind of form this relationship because back then you didn't know who was going to get signed. You
right.
had a good idea, and you kind of wanted to link up with them because knowing that there's a connection there might be able to kind of pull you up, uh, as it
Yeah,
were, and Slipknot, those guys were really good about doing it.
yeah.
I mean, Sean had who he had Down the Sun. He did that for. He did Gizmachi,
Gizmachi. Yep, yep,
40 Below Summer.
yep.
Um,
There's a lot.
I yeah, I mean, I'm forgetting some.
Yeah, of course, but
Corey came back for Face Cage.
yeah,
He
face
tried
gauge. Yeah,
to get Face Cage, and that was kind of our link up. They were our kind
mhm,
of counterpart in Des Moines, and
yeah,
we played a lot with them. We played, each other's CD releases and all those kinds of things. And hopefully, sometime in the future we can get Matt Nyberg, the singer from Face
yeah. I'd
Cage,
love to get Matt on.
on the
Yep.
show. They they hung it up a couple years back, or maybe it was like 2019, something like that. They played a big final show out in Des Moines, and my current band was lucky enough to play, and it was definitely a who's who of Des
Yeah.
Moines at that particular show. But they tried, and it's not a for sure thing either. When you do get that opportunity, and it may not happen,
Right.
you know. And I mean, it may happen sort of like with Down the Sun. I think they maybe got one record off,
Yeah, they did.
um, on a bigger label, so it's, I think Mudvayne obviously would be the feather in Sean's cap,
Sure.
um, but Corey went so far as to start his own label and
Yeah, he
sign Face
believed.
Cage.
Yeah, he believed in face gauge so much that
Good.
because he was, as I understand, as I remember, he was trying to
Mhm.
shop him around, trying to use his influence and his
Yep.
connections, and just couldn't get it over that finish line. So he's like, "Fine, I
Yeah.
believe in these guys enough that I'm going to start my own label." And he started Big Mouth Records,
Yep.
and he pushed it out there himself. He was part of the production of the CD and everything, and
Yeah.
and it's a good record,
Yeah.
and good, good. I wish that Face Cage would have went, further in what they did. Not saying that they didn't
I do
do
too.
well. I mean, shit, they played Download, they did all sorts of stuff. I mean, good for them.
Yeah. I
And they're
mean, they
they're
were.
just always good dudes, man. And
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
and I'm not gonna, please understand, I'm not going to disparage Omaha at all, but this is something I've always thought it seemed like Des Moines had more camaraderie you know what I mean? Whereas Omaha
Yeah.
just really felt like it was more dog eat dog. You know, there wasn't there was it was like I don't want to say there's like cliques, but there was like certain bands. Obviously, we had a
There
lot of
were.
bands. Yeah, that we had a lot of bands that got along well with, and some of them are like some of our best friends ever, and we take them anywhere and vice versa. And then, but there's just some of the ones, and I won't drop any names, obviously, but it was like if anybody got some sort of inkling ahead on anything, then it was just like there was this visceral attack on that band that was like they don't deserve it, we do, and I mean that probably exists everywhere, I would imagine to some extent, but it just felt
Yeah.
like in my experience, it was really, really, you know, strong in Omaha. And I think that,
Yeah.
yeah, I
It's
almost kind of
cutthroat.
wonder, dude, if some of that came from, we had that chat room called Slam Omaha. And I think that a lot of people took the word slam to heart. Instead of support local art and music, they just heard like slam, like we're going to slam
Yeah.
everybody. And they would just tear people up left and right,
Oh,
And,
I remember vividly coming home from shows to see if anybody had posted yet.
oh, God, yeah.
And and
Yeah, that was totally a
it's
thing.
yeah. And it was I don't even remember who the moderator was, or who set it up. But yeah, I mean, people would just go on there and be cruel.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, but I mean, it was the early 2000s,
Yeah.
mid 2000s. I mean, let's be honest, the internet was just really becoming a thing,
Yeah.
and people are the anonymity, I think,
Oh, totally.
really got to people, and they
Yeah.
were like, oh, I can create a fake profile and say whatever I want.
Right.
And they would, and I took a lot of heat for a variety of things.
Oh,
that
totally.
whole that whole glass thing that made Slam Omaha.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I remember vividly, like, after some shows, being absolutely terrified of
Right.
what was going to be put on there, because it was heavily, at least in the Omaha area, was heavily trafficked.
Yeah. Yeah, it
um,
sure was. Yeah, that was the thing, man. I forgot all about that until we started bringing it up just now. But it's like, I mean, that could be its own episode. It's just Slam
yeah, ain't
Omaha.
that the
But
truth? Yeah,
yeah, that was kind of rough. But again, like I said, I mean, all the different bands that I could think of that we ever interacted with from Des Moines were super cool. They were
yeah,
just
yeah,
it was just a lot of fun, and just everything like artistic too, because like we dealt with a bunch of photographers from there as
mhm,
well, and they
yeah,
were just like all about helping us out. And
mhm.
like remember Mouse, like
Oh yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
he was great, man. And
mhm,
like he took some of the best pictures of
yeah,
one of our shows that it was just awesome, and he was such a fun dude. And
yeah,
but yeah, man, I don't know. I just think that kind of coming full circle of what we're talking about, though. It's like I think that because of the attention that the Midwest got, because of Slipknot at the time, it kind of created that turmoil, I think, and
yeah,
because everybody just got a it's like when you get that attention, like just think about it like in high school, right? So say you're kind of that nerdy kid in the background that nobody pays attention to. And then all of a sudden, like one of your friends starts going on with the main cheerleader chick, and then it's like, well, hey, I got a
yeah,
chance, and so
yeah,
you start like, hey, I'm going to start dressing a certain way. I'm going to start dressing like my friend Brian over here because he got this cheerleader chick, and then and then you just start overreacting to it, and the next thing you
yeah,
know, like you and your little clique of buddies who are the nerds, in the background start chewing each other up and stuff, because
yeah,
like I want that
yeah,
cheerleader chick so bad, and I kind of
yeah,
feel that's what happened, and but what was cool, but again, like what you're talking about, it was neat that those guys, came back and they're trying to swoop in as many, and it wasn't even a business thing. I mean, I think the label saw it as a business thing, obviously. Anything. I mean, if you look at like the
right,
auto industry, so it's like this particular car, this, crossover, when the crossover first came out, it was like, boom, everybody wanted a crossover. And so all these different manufacturers started creating crossovers. And now, like, almost every single vehicle looks exactly the same today because it's like this one car made it so big and then they added this. And then everybody starts doing it. And it
yeah,
just completely changes the auto industry. And that's kind of what happens with music, something lands really hard and really big, and
Yeah.
then all the other industry or all the other organizations and companies all start doing the exact same thing. So I think that's what
Yep.
Slipknot, obviously they weren't the leaders of new metal by any means. They weren't the pioneers, but they were the pioneer that of what I would say is the first humongous impact that was like, hey, this this type of music, this type of band, these type of people that represent much more of a populace of people than the Adidas metal. And what I'm saying,
Yeah.
because like
Yeah.
Korn and POD and all those guys, were super rad. Yeah, I love those
Mhm.
bands, but we didn't necessarily wear Adidas and stuff like that in the Midwest. You know what I mean? And so we
I
didn't
went through
really.
my phase.
Well, I'm sure everybody did, but I'm saying it's like when they first came out, it was more of it took a while to come over here. You know what I mean? It wasn't
Yeah.
like, boom, hey, we are on TV now. I want to be those people that are on TV. Whereas I felt like Slipknot and stuff was more us, and it was
Right.
hiding behind a mask, and it was,
Yeah.
being dirty and
Hmm.
not trying to, wear the shiny spiffy thing to show off.
It's yeah. No, I agree with all of that. I I remember I was doing before any of that happened. I played a show and we were doing a local TV show, and I was still in my Adidas phase. So I am head to toe Adidas, and I'll put some footage of it up because it's on YouTube. So I'll put it up for the people watching. But I remember vividly somebody in the crowd going, "What are you, a soccer player?" And that was it. That was the end of my Adidas days.
Are you a
I mean,
soccer player?
at least on stage. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, what? There was some, four-letter words in there too, but I'm just like, okay, yeah. I mean, I can see how you got there. So
Holy
I'll go
crap,
ahead and
bro.
switch up my stage gear.
That is funny. That is so funny.
Yeah. And I mean, looking back on it, I was like, yeah, I really did kind of look like a soccer player. In
That's
fact, I
so
think it was a
funny.
soccer jersey, to be honest.
Interesting.
But
Are you a
yeah,
soccer player?
yeah, that was before the fishnets. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I think that's how far the pendulum swung the other way as I went from Adidas to the fishnets.
Nice. You're
Um,
like, I am never going to be
I'm
soccer
like,
player guy ever again.
I am going to course correct so hard that that
I'm
guy's
gonna
not going to
course
know.
correct. Holy
He's not
crap,
going to
dude.
know what hit him. No idea who it was. I mean, it came out of nowhere, and
Yeah.
like, well, pretty sure he's talking to me.
That guy's
But
probably gonna hear this episode one day, but yep, that was me.
if it was you, drop a comment.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's hilarious, dude. Well, I will say though, too, I mean, we all kind of freaking again, we are trying to find our own, and
Yeah.
because like what I was just saying, like I don't think the Midwest really had a vibe or a aesthetic, it was just we
Mhm.
just wore whatever was, kind of float over from the west or east coast and stuff like that, so like, like I want to say my first band because I was like back in the hair metal days. So my third band is when I first started, having some sort of popularity with music and getting out there and stuff, and we were putting out albums and everything like that. It was very much unintentionally we went down that road as well, like the baggy Jenko jeans and God,
Yeah,
Pacific
buddy.
Suns. Yeah, there you go. Nice, dude. Rocking it. That's sweet. But like Pac Sun
Represent.
shirts and like I wear, hats backwards all the time, but I was back then it was like new for me and I was like, hey, I'm gonna, but again, I was like, I remember like I did the chin strap beard and I rocked that thing for a decade, bro. But I got that idea from seeing Everlast,
Sure. Yeah.
and I was like, oh, I think I could pull that off, and I did,
Yeah, you did.
and but yeah, I just like it's funny because like I go back to that band and I look at our pictures and stuff, and I'm like, inadvertently, well, it's not like we had a meeting one day and we're like, let's look just like Limp Bizkit. It was like we didn't. It was never talked about. It just started happening. It
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
and I remember like we did this Halloween show, and I definitely didn't dress up like Fred or anything. I wore like a white straight jacket, and like I had my hair all spiked up and stuff all crazy.
Sure.
But my brother was our guitarist in the band, and he did some crazy like West Borland stuff, and he had like a jumpsuit and he had contacts in and all this wicked weird stuff and
Nice.
everything. And it was so, and he just thought it was so much fun dressing up like that. It was the first time he'd ever dressed up and played on stage. He just thought it was so much fun. Then he just continued to do it. And it was like, and then it wasn't until like years later that I'm like, holy crap, he continued dressing up. I was wearing a hat on backwards and stuff and baggy clothes and everything, rapping and stuff, doing new metal crap. And it was like, again, completely unintentional. It was just like, holy crap. We probably looked like a poser band of Limp Bizkit, and we weren't meaning to, at all. It's like here he's dressing up like Wes.
Sure. Sure.
But
I mean, I think that goes back to, kind of what everybody was doing and kind of what that book I mentioned kind of highlights. We were all kind of taking that aesthetic and tweaking it, to fit kind of what we were trying to do. And, I still see the influence here, and at least in the Omaha market today. There's bands that are still doing the two percussionists and they have some kind
yeah,
of concept. It's conceptual in some way. It might not be numbers, but it's characters, that kind of um I don't want to call it production because I don't feel that's right, but that kind of thing it still exists today, and they're fairly successful bands, regionally,
yeah,
who do that. And I do think it's because of the mark that Slipknot made um on on everybody here,
right.
not just in Omaha,
Yeah,
but I mean the Midwest. I mean, I think Kansas City is probably that feels a lot of that because, you know, and folks need to kind of realize too that, you have, Des Moines, Omaha, Kansas City, it's all about 3 hours,
yep,
so that was a quick regional run
totally.
that was easy to do.
Yeah,
And it was done a lot by bands in all three cities. If you were lucky, you got to Denver and Minneapolis, but then you're looking at 8 hours
you're
to get a
right.
band.
Yeah,
3 hours is a little bit more doable for the weekend warriors,
yeah,
which I feel I've
totally.
been my entire life. So,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
um,
We did that all the time. That was
but
always like, hey, we're
it
going
was
on
easy.
tour for the weekend. We're hitting the,
Yeah,
the tri state area.
yeah, yeah.
But
Um, but uh, but yeah, I think it's we were all kind of, they Slipknot kind of showed everybody, regionally that it could be done, and then that just kind of put gas in everybody's tank, and we all just kind of started to go after it best we could and
right.
kind of tweak what they did and kind of fit it in and hit the gas.
Yeah.
I hear it in my guitar playing. I hear it in our music. You know and I hear it, in a lot of people's music regionally. So I think that their influence has spanned 30 years for
Right.
sure.
Yeah. And I
Because
think that, going along with that too, again, I don't think it was intentional that anybody was like, I want to be just like them or I want to ride on their coattails or anything. I think what it was is I'm sure there's a lot of people that were like that, but I think what it was though was there's a lot of people that are like, hey, this looks like a lot of fun. I want to play in that playground as well. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And so, because you think about some of the bands that came out soon after or right around that era, like think of Head Charge, for example. So another
sure,
Midwest band, and
yeah,
they were rocking fishnets and stuff like that, but they did
yeah,
it in their own way. And you want to talk about a violent band? I mean, they were up there.
yes, they
So,
were.
but again, with that, that was kind of the thing was everybody had to kind of create their own shtick in a way to separate themselves from everything,
Yep,
because again, going back to the grunge days, it was you separated yourself by the music. And when it came to the new metal era, I don't think it was necessarily separation of music as much as it was the whole package. And you needed to do
right,
something because then it was so easy to be like, oh, you're just like these guys. Because so
yep,
many things were so many bands were so much like they are the band that wears the masks. They are the band that has this. And so it was like
yep.
it was so easy to be like they own that. Anybody else that tries to do that is going to fail in comparison and going to be mocked for it. You know.
Well, look at Mushroomhead.
Yes. That whole story, man. That is
They've been taking it on the chin their entire career.
the entire career. Yep.
And I mean, there's stories about, that, and we don't need to get into that, but I mean, realistically, and this is me personally, anytime I see a band wearing masks that isn't Slipknot, it's like, okay, you just copied Slipknot. Like,
Yeah.
so despite what anybody, you know, or how anybody feels about Slaughter to Prevail, whenever they put those stupid masks on, I'm like,
Yeah.
that is dumb, dude.
Right.
And I
But
think those are just like generic masks on Amazon. Like, I don't think there was anything like
I think they
intentional
started that
there.
way, but I think that they've since like actually have a deal with somebody
Do
and
they?
makes them and
Okay.
stuff. Yeah, because they
Yeah.
actually move and stuff like that now.
Okay.
Um, but
It's just like with Slipknot, there was intent there, kind of going back to, and I
right.
know I've said that word, a number of times, but with Slipknot, there was intent. You
Yeah.
know, there's a reason why Sean wears the clown mask.
Yep.
There's a reason behind Corey's masks, and to me, like that just seems generic, and you're hiding your face. You might as well, wear a ski mask.
Right. Yeah,
You
exactly.
know,
No.
so and it loses its. I don't want to say it's like intrinsic value, but does it does nothing for me.
Right.
When I see it
Yeah.
done, by others. Um, you know.
Yeah. So what's your take
Anyway,
on then on Mushroom Head then? Like with their masks in particular?
uh,
Because
I
again,
mean
obviously they didn't
that's
copy Slipknot.
right. They didn't copy Slipknot, but I do feel that they're very generic. There's a lot of parallels and a lot of coincidence
Which is really weird. Yeah.
between the two. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
both your bass players are wearing pig masks.
Yeah.
Like,
Kind of weird.
I don't know if that's just a coincidence,
Right.
but I think they're kind of in the like that gray area between Slaughter to Prevail and Slipknot. You know what I
Yep.
mean? I don't dislike it, but I don't like it either.
Yeah.
So, um, but then you saw kind of this back and forth with people trying out different things to kind of distance themselves from the others. So like Mushroom Head started doing the water drums.
Right.
Very cool,
Yeah.
but it's like, okay, you still have two sets of drums
Yeah.
on each side of the stage. So like it's still the same thing. It's like I get what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
It's a little too Blue Man Group for me, but like
Right.
but I
Yeah.
get it. You're trying to distance yourself from that. I don't think they do that anymore. Maybe they do. I
No, they
don't know.
do. Yep, they
Do
still
they?
do. Yep,
Okay.
they still do. Yep.
But
But again, I mean, I think, when you find something that separates something that's such on a razor's edge of, you're both trying to dance on the same blade,
yeah,
it's you got to find
yeah,
this as much distance as you possibly can, and that's one of the things that they did. And they might not even like doing those, Blue Man Group
right.
drums, but it's the one thing that makes them stand apart, so they have to keep it,
Yeah,
But I think that, again, Mushroom Head gets a bad rap all the time.
yeah, they do.
I think a lot of people go back and forth of who, if Mushroom Head would have went, say, 6 months prior to Slipknot, would have been the other way around. And I don't know on that because I think about it in the terms based on the music, and I think musically, again, I like Mushroom Head a lot, and like Sun Doesn't Rise is like one of my favorite new metal songs ever.
That was a good one.
Um, but I think musically wise, Slipknot just was a whole different element than Mushroom
Yeah.
Head. Mushroom Head was more about writing, you know, the formulaic type songs,
Mm,
which is good, and Slipknot really pushed it to that limit where it was like, whoa, this is chaos, and
right.
I think that's the thing, I think that the difference is that Slipknot wrote something that nobody had ever really done before,
Yeah.
but then that the mystery of the masks and the freaking beating the crap at each other on
Right.
stage and puking
Yeah.
and all that other stuff just added to it all.
Right.
And whereas Mushroom Head it was more of that was just their whole shtick was
Right.
this theatrical horror, type
Right.
thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I also think it was a lifestyle for Slipknot, to be honest. I mean, and it was done in the name of art, I think.
Right.
Sean for sure, but I mean, they would get so worked up. Joey would pee his pants. He'd pee his jumpsuit,
Yeah.
like those kind just to be gross. And that
Right.
like got them into this headspace that led them to the performances that we got, and to
Yeah.
me, that is like real art. That is like
Yeah.
That's not manufactured. That's just pure craziness. And that, I mean, yeah, to me,
Agreed.
that's very admirable, and it's more honest. And that's why, I mean, if I had to pick between the two, obviously I would go the Slipknot road, but
Of course.
it just felt more honest. And I think that that's why Slipknot probably would have done
Yeah.
better regardless of when the
Yeah.
records came
Yeah,
out.
because I also think that the aesthetic of the masks made a big difference too. Because again, Slipknot is very much like you said, artistic. Everybody had their own character, whereas Mushroomhead did a little bit. But again, I think with the influence of Jeffrey Nothing and stuff, it was very horror driven.
Right.
Their masks are more evil kind of a thing, whereas Slipknot's was more mysterious.
Right.
And especially the sophomore record and junior record of Mushroomhead, they really leaned into the horror side, lots of blood and all this other stuff, which whatever. But I think that's
Right.
why you see the difference and where it is, and that's why you're probably able to transition more and or not transition, but adhere to more of the Slipknot because it is more
Right.
artistic and
Right.
less horror.
Yeah.
Again, nothing against it. It's just
Yeah.
that's I think what separates them.
Yeah. I'm not a big
But
horror guy
me neither.
anyway,
Me neither.
so I'm like, eh.
Yeah.
So that didn't do much for me. And,
Yeah.
um, but, yeah, I think, all that stuff, it really, there was a certain expectation, out of bands in those days in terms of your look and your performance. And, just like, with any other, breakout kind of band, the labels are going to come knocking to see what else is there.
Yeah.
And if you're not ready, then it'll miss you.
Right.
Um, because, there's only going to ever be one Slipknot. There's only going to ever be one Corn. Like
Yeah.
these types of bands are like, I don't even know what to call them. Like they create their own kind of thing, and then you have the slew of everybody else. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That kind of took that and ran with it. Um, and those are your game changers.
Correct. In a way,
You
it's like
know?
an impact, and then there's the ripple, that
Right.
that happens
Right.
from it, and those ripple is all
Right.
the ripples, all those other bands that come from an impact.
Yeah. And I mean, you can still see Korn's influence on Slipknot. There's a
Oh
reason
yeah.
why they tuned in drop A. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
Or A standard. I don't remember, but
Yeah.
it's because of Korn. And there's a reason why they recorded with Ross Robinson, because they
Correct.
wanted it to sound like the first Korn album. There's a lot there's a heavy influence there, but they took that and they spun it in a way that was just something insane.
Right.
And
Agreed.
that was, again, intentional.
Yes. Intentional.
And I go back to that word because that's the underpinning in all of these things. And I think that that's why it took us what, a year and a half to do our record.
Yeah.
And we weren't eyeballing the clock in the studio either.
Right. No.
So
Yep.
like we could take our time, and we did, and everything that we did on that record was very intentional.
Yeah.
um and that was on purpose.
Yep. 100%. Yeah.
So
Because definitely, I definitely did my records where it was like, hurry up, let's get this out,
me too.
and you could tell, and it's like, I think I'm still proud of those records or whatever. But the one that, our downshift record that we did though, where we put a lot of time and effort into it, we wanted to paint that entire picture. And I think it shows. I'm very proud of that piece of art that we put together.
Me too.
But yeah, I think, speaking of that ripple and stuff, we were a part of that, kind of coming full circle
Yeah.
what we're talking about. And it was fun.
Yeah.
I think
Riding the wave.
yeah, we rode that wave, man. It was a lot of fun. And so again, I mean, hopefully people don't see that we're like complaining that there was any sort of shadow or anything from Slipknot. It actually
Yeah.
created a lot of
Opportunity.
opportunity, and it was just a lot of fun, man. It was because honestly, there wasn't, I mean, if you think about it, was there any real, label interest in the Midwest before Slipknot, and not that I
Not
know
that I
of.
could find. Yeah, not that I could find.
And but I remember, dude, like it was like, my band, we were talking with Roadrunner Records and,
Right.
had interest from them, and we went on, like a 6-month deal, ride with them and trying to tick all the check boxes that they wanted us to do, and
Mm.
it's a lot of work,
Yeah.
that you have to put in for all that stuff. And that's, again, I think we might have talked about that on a previous episode or whatever, but it's like, even if you do get a record deal, that people, just so people understand, you get a record deal and stuff, to actually go through fruition, to actually get that CD on those shelves back in the day, you had a 20% chance of getting there. That's
Yeah.
even saying you actually had a record deal from a major label.
Right.
And so it was just a tremendous amount of work to do all that. And then, but to even get to the table to sign something, was even more work,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we would have never had that opportunity if it wasn't for Slipknot.
Yeah.
So,
I agree wholeheartedly. So if any of them are listening, thanks.
yep, thanks. Yeah, because
Thanks for opening that door for everybody.
that's right. You gave some teenagers, a dream,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
Good
It's
times.
yeah, oh for sure. And I wouldn't change anything, of course.
No,
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 no regrets.
no, no regrets. That's right.
Not even a single letter. Um,
Yeah.
but it was interesting to kind of draw a lot of those parallels. And it's like, okay, yeah, we were kind of doing that. And we were very lucky to have people working with us, that were able to kind of help smooth some of the edges. And um, you know, like I said before, I'm extremely grateful for
Yeah,
them. And
like you said,
um,
we met a lot of really cool people. Geez, we were like learning trial by fire, and a lot of stuff, like a lot of, again, we had a lot of, like you said, a lot of help, a lot of relationships, business relationships
yeah,
and things at that period of time where I just learned so much. It was like, I mean, down to like, you have to get your photos done this particular way. You guys cannot be spaced more than 6 inches apart from each other. You can't, I mean, it was like there's
yeah,
so many
yeah,
intricate things that
yeah.
we had to do that it was like, I don't want to stand like that's gay,
That's
It's like, why
uncomfortable.
do we all need to stand right next to each other? That's really weird. And then like we get photos done and we're like standing like 12 feet across from each other in a room, and it's like that feels comfortable. And then we see the
Yeah,
photo, like something feels off in that, it's like,
yeah.
okay, well, they were right.
Looks off too.
It
Yeah,
looks off. Yeah, it's like, okay,
yeah,
so get right up on each other, and that,
yeah.
I guess there's a reason behind that. So, but yeah, I mean, there's just all sorts of stuff that you learn, as you go along in that. And it was just,
Yeah.
honestly, I'm not as musically deep as I used to be, and yeah, I'm not even in a band anymore, but my business sense, and all the things that I do with business now, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for everything I learned in that period of time.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, I got college degrees and everything, but I'm telling you right now, I learned so much more in that wave,
Sure.
that I attribute, to my actual profession right now than I, did in any education that I got, through a book or through a degree. So,
Yeah. I mean, I can certainly echo that. Um, what I learned about that business. A lot of it translates to other businesses. Um and it's done a complete 180, you
oh
know,
yeah,
compared to today, or
yeah,
then to today. Um, you know, so there and it's important to remember too, like social media was not really a thing yet, and streaming wasn't a thing yet, and during this time. So it was everything was physical copies, and you had to go hustle.
yeah,
You were trying to sell CDs, and just to give people an idea of how difficult that was, it had to, so in order for it to quote count, the barcode had to be scanned. So if
yeah,
you sold a CD at a show, you had to scan it somehow.
yeah.
It's very difficult to do because you know none of these things that exist today existed then. And
No,
I don't even remember how we did it. In fact, I think we had to manually report it to SoundScan.
correct. That's what it
And
was,
yeah,
which was
and
a
but even
bitch.
then, yeah, and even then they made it so difficult that you wouldn't want to do it in the first place because
Totally.
they knew you were going to fudge your number.
Right, exactly. Because
And
yep, that's what I was
yeah,
gonna say.
yeah.
Yeah, they push
And
back
it's
on
like,
everything.
yeah. And fast forward to today, now it's all about streams. And good luck getting those unless you have
Yeah.
a very, very high advertising budget on
Right.
Spotify every single month, and so you're basically paying for streams, which makes no sense to me. I would rather go hustle a CD, but that's not the way it works
Right.
anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like, could, bands, you know, say somebody's trying to follow, or kind of ride that wave, behind Spirit Box. How are they going to do it? They've got to, or does that scenario even exist anymore? Because, with streaming, it's like, okay, well, you know, or social media rather, you got to go viral almost,
Yeah.
I mean, look at Bad Omens and people like that. You gotta, TikTok's going to be the one to break you. You're
Right.
not, can you even ride one of those waves anymore? I don't think so.
Well, and I also feel like too with just social media and stuff like that, I think that things pivot so hard so quick,
Yeah.
like because of the viralness of everything. And
Yeah.
whereas again, back in our day,
Is
it was
that how this sounds? Oh
oh my
God.
gosh, look at us.
Oh no.
But seriously though, it was the fruits of your labor, and you could see
Yeah.
it, I mean, we were just talking about this off mic, earlier today. It was like, there was like this I don't know if you want to call it, if it was true or not or whatever, but there's this theory that, 10% of the flyers that you would put out would actually,
Yeah.
turn out to be people showing up to your show. So if you
Yeah. Yeah.
wanted 200 people to show up to your show, you put out 2,000 flyers, and that's a lot of windshields. That's a lot. That's a lot of going through parking lots. That's a lot of
Yeah. It's
stuffing
a
them
lot
in
of
anything that you can,
garbage on the
a
ground.
lot of garbage on the ground, a lot of time at Kinko's,
Yeah.
and
And
but I mean,
even
there was something with it though, because
yeah.
otherwise we wouldn't have done it, But
Yeah.
again, that, talking about what I was getting at though, it was like that was, you could see the fruits of your labor is what it was. Whereas today it's
Yeah.
like you can put in a tremendous amount of work, and unless if you do something that's going to spark up something that goes viral, it's just not going to go anywhere,
Right.
almost, it's different.
Yeah. It is. And I mean, even flyering is kind of a lost art.
Yeah.
I mean, people still do it, but not to the degree
Yeah.
that, and people aren't nearly as receptive to it
Yeah.
these days like they used to be. Um, but also people aren't really getting creative with their flyers like they used to,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
um, because it's a necessary evil and
Sure.
nobody wants to deal with it.
Right.
And most people are just going to pitch it on the ground anyways, in which case, if you're outside of a decent sized show, chances are there's a police officer around
Right. And so
and
you're
they're going to be
just
like, nope, move along.
exactly. Yeah. I remember, dude, I don't know if it was, we were at the Sokol auditorium one night, and there was somebody was flyering their own MySpace page. They weren't even a band, dude. They're just flying their own MySpace page. And I
Oh
was like,
man,
that's going after it, man. Like
taste of what's to come.
that's
Yeah, taste
crazy.
of what's to come.
Yeah,
The
no
original
kidding.
influencer.
The original influencer right there. Yeah. I just remember everybody going like their own MySpace. Like, what are you doing? But yeah, geez.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Yeah. I don't know.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it's come full circle, and I don't know if for the better,
Yeah,
or not
well,
full circle. You know
only
what I
time
mean?
will
But
tell. Yeah.
yeah. So, but
Anyways. Well,
yeah,
cool, man. Well, I think we could put a pin in it after that.
yeah,
Appreciate everybody for listening. Make sure you like, comment, share all that stuff on all your socials, and spread the word. And
for sure.
we appreciate everybody who's listening, and please tune in next time.
All right, we'll see you guys.
All right, see ya.